Hey, Tommaso from Rapido here. Today, I'm gonna show you really how to get the most out of your Hubspot account. It's a huge product, so I'm gonna focus on the key things you need to know, some little tricks that will definitely help you along the way. And then maybe in the future, we'll start with more advanced content. But if you are thinking about purchasing Hubspot, or if you just purchased Hubspot, you just started your free trial, you just signed up, and you really want to know how the hell do I get started, then this is a video for you. I'm really gonna focus on the key areas, the main things you need to know in order to kick it off, and then I'm sure you're gonna get better as time goes by. I'm sure you also wonder, who am I to talk to you about this? Why would you listen to me? What I can say is that I helped by now probably a dozen startups setting up their CRM inside Hubspot. It's almost always the CRM that I suggest to early stage companies that do not have dozens and dozens of salespeople. After that, maybe there are some nuanced discussions about the business model. Hubspot is a solid choice in really 90% of the cases. So I have applied it to many different type of companies and businesses. I also was part of their UX experiment when they were redesigning their overall interface. So I gave some feedback to their designers on the new redesign. So I hope this is enough for you to trust me getting into this. I just hope I can give you value, help you get started with this, because I really do think that it's an amazing tool that helps a lot of companies getting way more done than would have thought. So I am gonna assume that most people here are here for the CRM features of Hubspot. So how do I manage my contacts? How do I talk to them? How do I track deals? How do I track maybe recurring revenue from customers? And this is really the main things you're gonna look at. There are also some interesting account management and marketing aspects of Hubspot that I'll walk you through as time goes on. You can probably find some timestamp in the video down below, but I'm gonna start from how do I manage my contacts, because that's really the core of the value that a lot of people are gonna find in a tool like this one. So the way I usually describe it to people is, at the core of Hubspot are three big silos. One is contacts, so individuals that are usually defined by their email. There are exceptions, but email is usually the core around which you build the identity of the person that you want to store in your CRM. So then around that, you start writing down the name, the job title, and maybe the company they work for. And companies are what constitutes the second silos. So a company usually revolves around a website URL. That's not always the case. There are more traditional companies, but let's just imagine a typical software product that works as a company. You're gonna have the website, the company name, maybe how much revenue they make, a generic email, all this type of information. This is really customizable in Hubspot. You can decide really what to store, how, where. So that's perfectly fine and can be adapted to any business need. The really interesting thing is that, of course, these silos can talk to each other. So a company can have multiple contacts attached to it. One contact can have multiple companies attached to it. Maybe it's a person that works with many different companies. And the third silos is deals. So deals represent basically a business exchange or a business proposal with usually a company. Could be also just a contact that doesn't have a company. Again, they really interact with each other the same way, and you can interchange the order through which they communicate to each other. So usually a deal represents one interaction, one proposal that we have for a specific entity, whether it is a contact or a company, doesn't really matter now. And why do I specify this? Because sometimes people do not realize that I can have multiple deals with the same company or the same contact. Let's just imagine that I'm trying to sell something to Apple. Well, I might try to sell them back their pen, right? And I'm talking to the head of procurement for pens at Apple. Then this is one deal. On the other side, I might be talking to an Apple engineer trying to design their new mouse, because so far they didn't do a great job at that. And I'm trying to sell them this Logitech mouse, right? This is a completely separate deal. It has nothing to do with the other one. I can have multiple deals assigned to just one company like Apple. So these are really the three cores that you need to keep in mind when thinking of Hubspot. Really, everything is built on top of that. So now that you have this notion, we can jump into the product and show you how these things are distributed across the different sections of Hubspot. So first of all, we're gonna find the contacts section, which is really focused on the first two things we talked about. So inside contacts, you're going to find contacts, which sounds funny, but basically this is the individuals that are part of our database. And as you see, we immediately see this like CSV-like view where we have the email of specific people. In this case, these are the basic HubSpot things you're going to see. You have the name of the person, you could have their phone number, and you have the contact owner. Contact owner represents the person in your business that is responsible for that specific contact. So in this case, could be myself, for example. And then you have other things. You have primary company, last activity date, lead status. All of these things we can discuss more in detail later. The interesting thing is that you can then open the page of a contact, and this is really where the magic happens, is where you start seeing all the relevant information about that person. So usually you can customize this, but by default, what you have is a central section where you have the history with that person. So you have recent communication, you have when the account was created, the life cycle stage, and you can also see more specifically the activities. So you could write down notes and tasks for people. All of this will be stored in this view. On the left, you usually have the key information that need to be at hand. So let's say that you are a company that only makes a deal with leads or companies that make more than 10 million in ARR. Well, in that case, you will want to have here in about this contact or a section below, the field where you store the information about how much revenue the specific company or contact makes. And the reason why you do it is because then your salesperson can at a glance see here on the left, okay, this is actually a valid lead that I can work or not. So this is just a simple example. Then we can get into automations on how to filter away people that are below the threshold. But again, all of that just for another day. And then to the right, you usually have the connections to everything else that is happening in HubSpot. So again, we see here the main silos we talked about, companies and deals. You immediately see here to the right, the companies that the contact is attached to and the deals. We also have tickets, which is more about the account management part of HubSpot. Again, we're not for today. But so just to show you, I might decide to add a company here and either create a new one or add an existing one. So in this case, it would be HubSpot, which is not in my database yet. So I'm going to create it. And the database domain name is really what everything revolves around, as we said before, hubspot.com in this case. You see that also HubSpot has some intelligent, let's say, some smart feature to fill in the details of the company if they recognize the domain. Here you're going to set the type. Again, we're going to talk about it later. And these are all the default information they fill in, just like the annual revenue, like we mentioned before, for example. So I'm going to create the company. And you see that now I opened the company page that I was going to show you just now. So that's perfect. Company page, same structure, same way of thinking, quick information on the left. Also, I didn't talk about it before. This is the quick action section. So you want to call someone, you want to create a task, you want to schedule a meeting. And here to the right are the connections. So if I click here, I'm going to go back to the contact of before, and you see that this contact is actually connected to the company. So let's do it one last time, but for the deals now. So I'm going to create a deal connected to HubSpot. I'm going to put it in the sales pipeline. We're going to touch on this soon. And I'm going to say that the amount of the deal is 1,000 euros. So euros is the currency default for this account. What this means is the potential value of the contract, like the value I think this contract, this sale would have for my business. Close date is when I think the deal could be closed. So I think, yeah, HubSpot is a pretty cool company. I can probably close them in 2 weeks. I am the owner. And then we're going to get into like deal type. It's new business because I didn't do business with them before. Priority, they are high priority because I love HubSpot. I want to get it done soon. And I can associate the deal also to the contacts at HubSpot, right? So this makes it easy for me to see this specific deal, not only when I open the HubSpot company page, but also when I open the specific contact page of Brian or Maria. And line item is the products that we sell. Again, not important for now. just know that you can create a product library. In your product library, you can have different type of products that you want to sell. Whether we are talking about subscriptions or physical products, all of this can be managed inside Hubspot. So let's just create the deal. And here's the view of the deal. Again, you should know this by heart by now. Quick information and quick actions to the left, activities in the center, and connections to the right. The structure is the same, very consistent, very easy to use and to understand. So now let's go back to the list view just to go one by one in all the features. Companies looks just like contacts. So now we finally have our first company, which is Hubspot. And you see here, we can go more in details into how the view works. You have different ways of filter here to the top. So you can decide whether to filter for owner, and you can say, I only want to see companies that are assigned to me. I don't care about companies assigned to others. You can filter for when companies were created, when was the last activity. So this is very helpful if you want a quick glance. And you can also add specific views that have preset filters. So in this case, I could create a filter called high priority, and I can confirm, make it visible by everyone. And I could go here to the filters, go to advanced filters in this case, and say that a high priority company is a company that makes annual revenue that is greater than, let's say 10K, right? So I'm gonna apply the filter and then hide it. I'm going to save the view, and everyone now will have this high priority view so that they can see the list of all the companies, and then only the companies that have a certain criteria, that fit a certain criteria. Then in the contact space, we also have calls. This is basically the history of the calls you and your sales team have made. Activity feed, kind of same thing, but also includes emails basically. A very cool thing of Hubspot is that it allows you to easily connect your Gmail or Outlook account to it. So all the email exchanges that you have can be stored into Hubspot automatically, or you can reply to emails through Hubspot as well. So really, really awesome feature. And then you have lists. Lists are just a better way of organizing, managing your contacts. So they can be based on company, contacts, or deals. And they can be of two ways. They can be static or they can be active. If a list is static, then that list will not change as time goes on. You create the list, it's 100 people now, it will stay 100 people in the future unless you manually add more people, or unless you manually delete some contacts from it, or you delete some contacts from your account. An active list, instead, you select the criteria that define who stays in the active list, and then every time that a contact gets updated or created and they fit the criteria, they enter the list. And likewise, every time a person or contact that is already in this list changes and doesn't fit the criteria anymore, well, that person is eliminated from the list. So this could be a test list that we create for contacts. This is an active one. And see, I could say that I only want to add contacts that maybe, let's say, in their company property have revenue, let's use the same, that is greater than 10,000. Sorry, 10,000. And you see now what's going to happen is that this is going to process and create my list. And out of the 3 contacts that are in my test account, 2 of them are going to appear here because they are connected to a company with more than 10,000 euros in annual revenue. And if I then were to change the annual revenue of Hubspot from the one currently in to 10,000, well, then they will not be part of the list anymore. So one downside of lists is that sometimes they take a while to update. So here I had to wait and kind of refresh the page. It's still missing one person because it wasn't connected before, but it will appear here. This is the important thing to know. How are you going to use lists? Well, you're going to use lists in different scenarios. I would say the most common thing I've seen is either for marketing or for sales. You're going to think no big news there, but let me go more into details. So let's say that the quarter is closing up and we need to increase revenue fast. So what we can do is filter for companies that have a certain amount of revenue we want to see. and where the contact property lifecycle stage is not, it's not a customer, for example, right? So we exclude the customers from this, and we even exclude the leads and the subscribers because we want more qualified people. We want to be sure that they are ready to go. Again, we're gonna talk about later on what all of these means. So the list is gonna be created. Again, the list usually takes a while. This is the one annoying thing, but we need to be patient. And once the list is updated, we can start in batches run marketing or sales activities with the contacts in the list. So now the list is ready. I can select everyone in the list from here, and I can do a few things. For example, I can assign them to a specific salesperson. In this case, could be me. I can enroll them in a sequence. We're gonna see later what this is. Or I can create tasks, for example. So I am going to create a task now, which is a call task of high priority for myself. And I'm gonna add it to a queue. A queue is basically a list inside a to-do list. Let's call it that. So this queue could be called calls high, let's say calls priority, and save. And I'm gonna set the due date in 3 business days. And I'm gonna send a reminder to myself. So I will create this. And this is an example of how you can use list to better and more easily assign specific leads to specific salesperson that needs to call ASAP. Or another example is, again, sequences. So this account is a test account. It's not on the paid plan, but basically a sequence, we're going to show you maybe also in another video, is a cadence of emails that you can send to specific contacts. So you can send the first email, and it's called a sequence because if the person responds or if the person does the action you want them to do, like books a meeting, then the sequence stops. If they don't, maybe they don't reply, they don't see the email, they don't interact, then the second email is going to be sent maybe after 2 days, 3 days, depending on whatever you decide. In the middle, you can add tasks, you can add connection on LinkedIn. Like there are a lot of things you can do in this sequence graph, and it's pretty helpful. Another thing you can do, of course, is to add them to a static list and roll them in workflows. So again, a lot of functionalities. The way you might approach this from a marketing side is around email. So we jump into the marketing section now. And this is to show you that Hubspot also has great email features. It's not necessarily the best tool, but when you consider the context where this is in, then it's pretty great to have a solution that is comparable to MailChimp, again, maybe not as good, but inside such a fully fledged CRM. So what you're gonna do here is, for example, create an email. You have different types of emails. You can create automated emails that will be very helpful. For example, if you connect your sign-up process or lead capture to Hubspot, that is gonna help you a lot. It's basically also gonna work as a lifecycle marketing tool. In this case, we just want to create a regular email as a marketing function. And I'm going to take this template they have for promotions. And you see the editor is pretty simple, pretty straightforward. You can easily change images, you can change the text, you can pick different layouts. The design is pretty intuitive. Not the best, not the worst. I think it does its job pretty well. You can decide who the email is sent by, the name of the person that sends the email, the subject line, like all the basic things, and you can decide who to send it to. And as you can see here, you can decide to send an email to a full list, for example. So here we go back to how you can use list for marketing purposes. This is exactly why. You don't want a salesperson to reach out individually to someone. For some reason, you don't want to send a sequence because this is more of a newsletter type of thing. Then you send your newsletter through this. If you're doing sales activities, definitely go through sequence. It's usually much better also for deliverability. If you're sending a newsletter, then this is the way to go. You can send tens of thousands of emails at the same time. It's gonna work, of course, provided that your domain is also ready for it. So you cannot just buy a brand new domain and send 10,000 emails without having people's permission. Not only it's against a lot of European rules in case you're in Europe, but also it's gonna mess up your whole Gmail or Outlook accounts and give a very bad reputation to your domain. Sequences are much better for also the safety of your domains, because the cadence of the emails is spread out. Like, emails are not sent in one batch, they are sent let's say with 5-10 minutes delay. Again, things you can decide yourself, and that is gonna look more normal behavior, more human behavior. And from Google's point of view or Microsoft point of view, that is way more human behavior. It looks way more human, even though, again, you shouldn't send emails from your main domain. Anyway, this is the email functionality. Hope this was helpful for you to see. We can dive deeper later if you think it's important. And also here you see this health score, which is pretty helpful if you're curious how your emails are performing compared to other companies. Like, I think it's pretty nice. Still in the marketing section, you also have ads. So you can connect your Google ads, your Facebook ads here, and you're gonna see, for example, the leads that they're bringing you. This is gonna help you inform better everything you know about the customers that are inside Hubspot. You can see which ad they came from, and that can help you inform the sales conversation. In landing page, you can basically create landing pages, pretty straightforward. Again, not the best builder out there, also not the worst, so that's pretty good. You can also create your blog in Hubspot, or kind of a static website, so pretty cool features here too. And they also have some social and SEO functionalities. So social basically allows you to schedule social media posts, just like Buffer or Later, like all those scheduling tools allow you to do. I think it's pretty good. The team is always the same. Not the best one, but considering that it's included and all packaged together, that's pretty impressive. And SEO, it's not gonna make things that much better for you. You are gonna need other SEO tools. You're gonna need someone to do SEO if you want to take it seriously, but it does give you really some helpful tips and tricks every now and then. So I wouldn't discard it. And then other important thing is forms. So here you can create a form to collect leads, to collect information, to survey your existing users. So again, just another standalone product that you would probably pay money for. It's already inside Hubspot. It's missing some functionalities, but really nothing major. One thing I don't recall is whether they have multi-step forms. I think, yeah, exactly. I think they don't. That's really maybe the biggest thing I would want from something like this. So the ability of having someone submitting the first page and then sending them to a second page, maybe based on what they replied in the first page. So let's say I ask them for revenue, and if the revenue is above a certain threshold, I want to ask them other questions. I do believe that there are some ways of, for example, making a field required or making a field hidden. So to pass properties kind of into the dark. Maybe one thing missing from forms is a multi-page form. I believe that's not possible at the moment. You cannot ask information on a first page and then have a second page where maybe also you show different fields based on what they replied. That type of thing sometimes is helpful, sometimes it looks nicer than just a straight up form, but you do have some logic that you can build into the forms. You can decide to hide certain things from certain customers, but it's mostly relying on you already having information about the customer itself. So if you don't know who's replying because it's someone on your website that you don't know, then the logic functionality is going to be a little bit limited. But again, it works pretty well. So now we can jump into the sales section of things, and this is really, really dense. So get ready, okay? I'm going to give you maybe 5 seconds for you to rethink about everything we said so far in the marketing section, because sales is really where the meat of this product is. So let's start from deals. In deals, you basically have your pipelines. In fact, you can see your deals as a list, but you can also see them as a board, a Kanban board. And this is what most people think about when we are talking about a sales pipeline. So something like this, where you can drag a deal along and really change the status. And this is where a lot of salespeople spend most of their time. A pipeline in Hubspot has different stages. You can decide which stages to have. You can just click on here on edit pipelines and decide what to input here. So maybe you don't need decision maker brought in, you can delete it. You don't need appointment scheduled, but you need email sent for some reason. It's not a good property, but it's not a good stage name. I'm just gonna show you as an example. And you go back to your pipeline and you're gonna see this is already updated, already working. So what else can you do in the pipelines? You can change the deal probability. What is this for? Basically, this allows you to see with better accuracy the value of your pipeline. So what some sales organizations do is look at how much potential value they have in the pipeline. So they send emails to Apple and Hubspot and Google, and they say, the potential value for this is 50 million. Perfect. But the truth is that is only potential value, and you know by statistics that you're not going to close all the deals that you have. So as you see here, we have one deal in presentation scheduled with the value of 1,000 euros. And Hubspot shows us the total value, right, 1,000 euros, but also the weighted value. And the weighted value is established based on the percentage of success that we have for each deal stage. So if we know that once we schedule a presentation, 50% of the prospects and the leads are going to convert into customers, then the value will be 500 euros. And this gives us a much more accurate representation of how much money can we expect to make in the next month or 2 or 3 or whatever that is. Also, pipelines can be filtered. So again, Hubspot is pretty consistent. This upper section allows you to do some quick filtering, and then you can have more advanced filters like close date needs to be before October 31st. So Halloween is a terrible day for us. We want to see what we can close before. And it's pretty intuitive. I think it's really important when you build a CRM that it's helpful and easy for salespeople to use. If you click here, as you see, you're just redirected to the deal page that we saw before. You can decide which properties are asked to people when they add things to the pipeline. So you can say that in order for a deal to be in a specific stage, people need to tell you the amount, and you can even decide to make the property required or not. So let's say that the amount is something that sometimes you don't know when you bring someone to the first stage, then you're not going to make it required. And you see that once you move back up Hubspot here now, it's going to ask you, okay, what is the amount of the deal? And it's even going to prompt you to update it if the value is already present. And it's going to group it into this previously completed properties. So the one downside, or like the one thing to keep in mind, is that if you move this to any other stage, let's say that you skip the first stage in the first place, then unless you go and you also add amount to the other stage properties requested, then the question is not going to get asked to the salesperson. So this is why usually I drag almost all the properties that are here also to the subsequent properties. So if I ask amount and if I ask priority or let's say deal type in this step, I might also add it here, amount deal property. Why? Because I know that sometimes deals just get they skip a bunch of steps and they get created into a specific point of the pipeline, and I still want to know amount and deal type even if we're already at the contract sent stage, because I don't know, my salesperson met someone at the bar and just sent them the contract. And if the properties are already filled in, they're going to be in that separate bucket. Some people are not even going to see it because they're not going to open it, and that's fine. It's not bothering anyone. So usually that's the best practice. Basically, you are going to have the first, let's say these two here, and then as you go on, the number of property you ask will probably grow, but that's usually okay. You can have some automation, right? So I'm going to leave without saving. This is also if you unlock the workflow part of Hubspot, but you can decide to send an email to someone when they reach the contract sent stage, or send an email to your account manager when you close a new customer, right? So the account manager gets a task saying, hey, this customer was closed, send them an email, onboard them, whatever it is. This is, again, super flexible. And you can create multiple pipelines. So you can have a pipeline for your product number 1 and another pipeline for product number 2. If for some reason you do not want to split the products in another way, which I think it's usually preferable. Another common thing I see is people splitting one-time orders from recurring orders, or let's say new business from existing business. So it really depends on your business here. It's hard to suggest any fixed structure. Just go with whatever is simple for the salespeople to use. I usually prefer to go for one pipeline just because it's easier to manage, it's easier to see, and you can use filters to maybe make the view a little bit easier, but sometimes it's really important to have separate pipelines and evaluate them differently. So really think about it. Maybe also consider talking to some expert to ask for recommendation if you're not sure. And also the Hubspot team is usually pretty helpful. So you can also maybe try to drop a message in the support chat and see what they say. Another thing you can do in Hubspot for deals, for contacts, for companies we didn't talk about is customize what you see in the center, in the left, on the right. So here I'm gonna leave it to you to explore, but you can basically decide to create different views for different teams and showcase different information based on what is relevant to you. Continuing through the sales section, I'm gonna show you the tasks. So before I created tasks for myself and I put them in a specific queue, and you see here, now I see the task I need to do as a salesperson. I can manage my queues and see the complete list, right? I can create a task queue, but now I'm just gonna back to the whole list. And what I'm going to do is show you that what you can do. So let's say that you are ready to get started and you want to start calling these people, right? You are ready to go. There are a few ways to approach it. You can do select in a batch and start the tasks, or you can go one by one. So you would open this task and you see here, the view is ready for you to take action. So now, again, this is a sample account. If I had the right account, there would even be a call pop-up here that would show me a dialer inside Hubspot and would allow me to call and record the call directly inside Hubspot. Everything will be saved. It's an amazing feature. In this case, I don't have it. So this is just gonna tell me, hey, you need to call Brian. So I can call on my phone, and once I'm done, I can click complete. While I'm in the call, I can go to notes and start jotting down some notes and say, okay, he is not interested in product X, right? And then save note and complete task. Or I can also set a to-do for myself to follow up again in the future. And you see the task will be completed. And once that's done, if you have paid access, you are going to be able to move to the second task. So this really helps a salesperson be focused because they're literally going like done, and the second one show up, and done, and the third one shows up. So it really gets you into the flow of getting things done, which is awesome. It's really what we need in order to maintain efficiency. In documents, you have basically a Dropbox for your business, documents that you need to share often with your customers, presentations, and they have some cool features like you can only see the presentation if you confirm your email so that you cannot share it with people outside, and I collect your email. You can see in which part of the presentation people drop off, so you can improve your presentation. You also have meetings. This is basically a Calendly inside Hubspot that allows people to book a call with you. You can decide when you're available, which calendar to check for to avoid double booking, what is the length of the meeting, so really a lot of things. You have payments, so now you can get payments directly through Hubspot, even though this is only available to companies that are using the US data center, I guess for privacy reasons. Go EU. And then you also have playbooks and quotes. Playbooks are just awesome. They are available for professional plans, so a little bit more expensive plans. But basically, as we saw before, a salesperson could be calling a contact. If you have the playbook feature, as I'm calling, I already see the questions that I need to ask someone. Maybe I'm qualifying them, so I have the qualifying playbook, and there are already fields where I can jot down notes about the specific questions I'm asking. So let's say that part of the qualifying call that I do as a SDR involves me asking, are you using Shopify? Yes or no. If I have a playbook, I already have a reminder inside the contact view. Okay, you need to ask this question, and I already have the checkbox to say, yes, they are, no, they're not. And this is true for multiple questions, and you can have multiple playbooks based on how many types of calls you run. And then you have quotes, which is what it says. So you can create a quote attached to a specific deal, and you can send it to the company directly, or you can download it and then send it to them for them to sign, and even get the payment again if you're based in the US. Let's go to the services section. So services section is very similar to the deals, but it's focused on helping your customers. So this is more account management focused. I'm not the biggest fan of Hubspot used as an account management tool, at least not by itself. There are usually other things you should be looking at, but it looks like they did add a client portal feature. A knowledge base I tried, it works pretty okay. And they also have feedback service like NPS and similar things. So if you want to give it a go, you can try it. Again, the real value is having everything in one place, and I guess it can make sense. The automation section includes the sequences that we talked about and the workflows. This is an example of how workflows look like. You can send different emails, create different tasks based on different attributes of the same company or contact. So really, again, flexibility at your hands, pretty cool functionality of the tool. Highly recommend you play around with it. And then you have reporting. Reporting in Hubspot is okay, as most tools. If you want to do some like deep analysis, serious analysis, you might want to get the data out of Hubspot and into some BI tool, but this really works well for what you might need to do as a founder or as a sales manager to make sure that things are going well, right? So they have multiple charts and templates. An example maybe could be, let's say, calls. There is nothing here. Let's say sales. Okay, so this is a sales manager dashboard. I can decide what to see. It will be created. And basically, I will have at a glance a list of how many calls have we done, how much deals have we closed per salesperson. So this is also very helpful if you run weekly meetings with your team, sales team, for example, and see, hey, you closed 500 euros of deals this week. It used to be way more. What happened? What is blocking you? And then you can go see it and check what are the reasons why a specific deal didn't close. Or maybe the pipeline was not filled enough. And you can really dive a little bit deeper here, get a better overview, and investigate what are the reasons behind certain numbers. So I highly recommend also you set this up once you get started. And now I'm going to show you the last piece of how Hubspot is structured, which is conversations. Conversations basically has two main parts. One is emails and one is chatbot. So the chatbot, again, you can create a version of a chatbot in Hubspot. You can then attach it to your website, add it to your website, or build it inside Facebook Messenger. And here it's what you usually see in a lot of companies. So it's going to pop up, it's going to ask the users if they have any question, and they can jump right in and talk to a sales agent. The email section instead is here in inbox. You can have a shared inbox that multiple people have access to, where multiple people can reply. Pretty straightforward. You can have templates, basically helping your team coming up with pre-built answers to requests that maybe come up very often. You can help your team offering pre-packaged responses to common questions that you receive. So again, pretty straightforward. You can divide them in different folders. Really, really helpful. And I think this sums it up. I mean, snippets is another one similar to templates, but I do believe that we went through really all the main features of Hubspot, all the main things you need to know about. So connect your Gmail, connect your Outlook, start feeding in the contact information, the company information. And as time goes on, you're gonna really see how much value this can add to your business. I realize now that it took a really long time just to show you all the things you can do. So maybe it will require some more content to show you how to structure the pipeline, how to build one. Maybe I'll bring you some real life examples. I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the questions what you would like to see. I'm definitely gonna use your feedback to come up with new videos, ideas, and change maybe the structure of some of the future videos. Again, I remind you that if you want to get a 90% discount on your first year on HubSpot and you are eligible startup, you can go to Rapido.fyi, sign up there, and the moment you are accepted, the moment you get into the program, we accept the startup that we like, we believe have a bright future ahead. There is no charge, no nothing. If you are accepted, you get access to a lot of deals like this one from HubSpot, like many others. And I really appreciate you checking it out, giving it a go, applying. It's really something that we are doing to help founders, to help startups succeed a little bit more than average. So every little feedback on that helps. And every person we help is also really good to see. So again, thanks again for having watched this video. There should be another video out by the time you watch this on how to pick the right CRM for your startup. As you can imagine, HubSpot is a pretty big recommendation there, but there are others that might be more suitable to companies that want something cheaper or that have more specific needs. So you can go and give it a look. I hope this video was helpful for you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye bye.